My best friend stole my boyfriend, but I had the last laugh. I met Emily during my first week at Stanford. We were both running late for our introduction to psychology class, eyes glued to our campus maps. In a chaotic collision, our books and papers went flying. As we scrambled to pick them up, our eyes met, and we burst out laughing. Instantly, I felt an inexplicable connection. There was an easygoing nature about her, a warmth that made me feel like I had known her for years. Over the next few weeks, we became inseparable. We shared everything, from the excitement of our first college parties to the stress of midterms. Emily was the life of the party, always ready for an adventure. I, on the other hand, was more reserved, preferring quiet nights in with a good book. But somehow, our differences complemented each other perfectly. I also met Jake at Stanford. It was a Friday night at a fraternity party. The music was pounding, and the air was thick with the smell of beer. I was standing off to the side, feeling a bit overwhelmed, when I caught a glimpse of him. He was tall, with sandy brown hair that fell in a messy yet charming way. His blue eyes sparkled under the dim lights. As if sensing my gaze, he turned and our eyes locked. My heart skipped a beat, and a rush of excitement coursed through me. He walked over, a shy smile on his face, and asked me to dance. From that moment on, we were inseparable. Our relationship was like a fairy tale. We spent hours studying together at the library, stealing glances at each other over our textbooks. On weekends, we'd go on picnics in the park, sharing sandwiches and laughing at each other's jokes. I remember lying in his arms under the stars, thinking that life couldn't get any better. I was head over heels in love, and I was sure he felt the same way. One fateful day, I had an early class cancellation. My mind immediately filled with the idea of surprising Jake. I practically skipped towards his dorm, a wide smile on my face, imagining the look of joy on his face when he saw me. As I got closer to his room, I heard a familiar laugh. My steps faltered, and a sense of unease crept over me. I recognized that laugh. It was Emily's. My heart started to race, and my palms grew sweaty. I opened the door slowly, and there they were, on Jake's bed, sharing a bowl of popcorn and watching a movie. Their heads were close together, and they were laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. I stood there, frozen. My mind was in a whirl, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Jake and Emily looked up, and their faces turned ashen. "What are you doing here?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. I could feel a lump forming in my throat, and my eyes stung with unshed tears. Jake stammered, "It's not what it looks like." Emily was feeling down, so I invited her over to watch a movie. Emily nodded vigorously, her eyes wide with guilt. I wanted to believe them. Desperately. I told myself that there was a perfectly logical explanation, that they were just friends. But deep down, a seed of doubt had been planted. I decided to give them the benefit of the doubt, but from that day on, I became hyper-aware of every little thing. Emily would cancel our plans at the last minute, saying she had to study, or had a sudden family emergency. Each time, a pang of disappointment shot through me, but I tried to brush it off. Jake would be on his phone a lot, smiling at messages. When I asked him who he was texting, he would get defensive, saying it was just his mom or a group chat with his friends. Every time he dodged my questions, the knot in my stomach tightened. A few weeks later, I was looking for my favorite lipstick. I remembered leaving it in Emily's room, so I made my way to her dorm. As I rummaged through her desk, my hand brushed against a small box. I pulled it out, and my eyes widened in shock. It was a box of condoms. I stood there, frozen, staring at the box. Emily had always told me that she was waiting for the right person, that she wanted her first time to be special. And here she was, with a box of condoms. I was about to leave when I noticed a picture on her bedside table. It was a picture of Jake and Emily, taken at the beach. They were holding hands, and Jake was looking at Emily with love in his eyes. I felt like the ground had shifted beneath my feet. My knees went weak, and I had to sit down. A wave of nausea washed over me, and I struggled to breathe. I confronted Emily as soon as I saw her. "What's going on? Why do you have a picture of You and Jake at the beach, and why do you have condoms in your room? I demanded, my voice shaking with anger and hurt. I could feel the betrayal, like a knife in my heart, twisting and turning. Emily burst into tears. I'm so sorry. Jake and I have been seeing each other for a few weeks. We didn't mean to hurt you, but we couldn't help it. We love each other. I was devastated. I felt like my whole world had come crashing down. I had trusted them both with my heart, and they had shattered it into a million pieces. I told Emily that I never wanted to see her again, and I broke up with Jake. For the next few days, I locked myself in my room. I skipped classes, ignored my phone, and cried myself to sleep. I couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, the image of Jake and Emily together would flash before me. I felt so alone, so betrayed. I kept asking myself what I had done wrong. Why had they chosen to hurt me like this? I was consumed by a sense of self-doubt and despair. After a week of wallowing in self-pity, a new feeling started to emerge, anger. I was angry at Jake and Emily for betraying me, but I was also angry at myself for being so naive. I decided that I wasn't going to let them win. I was going to get revenge. I started by gathering evidence of their betrayal. As I took pictures of the condoms, the picture, and scoured through text messages, a sense of determination filled me. I knew that this was my chance to expose them for what they had done. I also started to follow them. I felt a strange mix of fear and excitement as I trailed behind them, my heart pounding in my chest. I found out that they were planning a romantic weekend away at a cabin in the mountains. I decided to crash their weekend. I booked the cabin next to theirs and waited for them to arrive. As I waited, my mind was a jumble of thoughts. I was nervous about confronting them, but I was also excited at the thought of finally getting justice. When they got there, I waited until they were settled in, and then I knocked on their door. Jake opened the door, and his face turned white when he saw me. "What are you doing here?" he asked. I pushed past him and walked into the cabin. Emily was sitting on the couch, looking shocked. I took out my phone and showed them all the evidence I had gathered. "You thought you could get away with betraying me, but you were wrong. I'm going to make sure that everyone knows what you've done," I said, my voice cold and determined. I could feel a sense of power, a feeling that I was finally taking control of the situation. Jake and Emily started to beg me not to tell anyone. They said they were sorry and that they would do anything to make it up to me. But I didn't care. I was consumed by my anger and the desire for revenge. I uploaded all the evidence to social media, and it went viral. Everyone at Stanford was talking about Jake and Emily's betrayal. Jake's reputation was in tatters. His friends turned their backs on him, and he lost his internship at a prestigious company. Emily was ostracized by our friends. She had to transfer to another college. I thought that would be the end of it, but then, a few months later, I received a message from Jake. He said that he had made a big mistake and that he still loved me. He asked me to give him another chance. I was hesitant at first. I didn't know if I could ever trust him again. Every time I thought about giving him a second chance, the memories of his betrayal would flood back, and I would feel a sense of pain and betrayal all over again. But as time went by, I found myself thinking about him more and more. I remembered the good times we had shared, the way he made me laugh, and the way he made me feel safe. I decided to meet him for coffee. When I saw him, I felt a rush of emotions. He looked different. He had lost weight, and there were dark circles under his eyes. He seemed more mature, and he looked genuinely sorry. We talked for hours. He told me that he had realized that I was the one for him. He said that he had made a huge mistake, and that he would do anything to make it up to me. He had broken up with Emily right after I left the cabin, and he had been trying to find a way to apologize to me ever since. I listened to him, and a part of me wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that he had changed, that our relationship could be repaired. I decided to give him another chance. We started dating again, and this time, it was different. Jake was more attentive. He made sure to show me how much he loved me. He would surprise me with flowers, take me on romantic dates, and always be there when I needed him. One day, Jake took me to the beach, where we had our first date. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. The waves were crashing against the shore, and the salty breeze was in the air. Jake got down on one knee and proposed to me. I was so happy that I started to cry. I said yes, and we kissed. As we were walking back to the car, I saw Emily. She was standing on the beach, looking at us. Our eyes met, and I could see the pain in her eyes. I felt a twinge of guilt, but then I remembered what she had done to me. I took Jake's hand and walked away, knowing that I had finally found happiness. And as I looked back one last time, I realized that sometimes the biggest betrayals can lead to the greatest blessings.